Welcome into another News for Jags podcast. I'm Jamal St here alongside Justin Barney. Justin, Jaguars 1-0.
1-0. 1-0. That's all you can ask for. It doesn't matter style, points, or whatever. But Jaguars 1-0 was not pretty.
No.
Really, kind of the blueprint they followed last year. It was play bad for a little bit of time, and then that furious comeback, and it makes it all look good. 10-point win, 31-21. A little more challenging than what we expect.
It definitely was a little bit more challenging. The Colts gave them a run for their money. For what it's worth, I'll say Anthony Richardson looked like he played a really good game, better than what I expected from the rookie quarterback. He looked better in a Colts uniform than he ever did in a Gators uniform, very controlled as a passer. He uses athletic ability at times, able to really show off what he can do. And he gave that Jaguars defense just about everything they could handle.
Yeah, and 31-21 we said, and the final score was a little deceptive because of how tight it was. I mean, in the last 9 minutes of the game, thing completely flipped. We'll get to the big plays in a second, but I was happy with how the Jaguars played against Anthony Richardson.
Right.
An enigma. You don't know what to expect out of him. We knew what he was at Florida. He was a great athlete, had some issues as a pocket passer.
Yep.
And again, you knew. I mean, Mike Caldwell said this guy is an athletic freak in the backfield.
Yep.
You don't know what to expect.
Right.
We've got to plan for anything. And he didn't use his legs as much as I thought. He did have a lot of more intermediate passes, and I think the game plan was probably a little vanilla for him, scaled down a little bit. I think the next time Jacksonville sees the Colts, Anthony Richardson is going to have a little more tools in the toolbox to use, but I think Jacksonville played as well as possible. The defense kept them in that game on Sunday, and really good to see. I mean, Foye Oluokun bat down a pass at the end. Darius Williams, a big breakup on the 2-yard line. So a lot of big defensive plays, and you kind of hope for that offense to get back in gear, and I think they will. It's the first game with some new parts, some new pieces. Offensive line left a little to be desired, but overall, happy with the divisional win in Week 1. A place you've not won since 2017.
All right, let's take this step by step. Let's actually start with some news that broke prior to the game. Press Taylor officially has the keys to the Jaguars offense. Doug Peterson has turned the play calling over to his offensive coordinator. Doug said that last year, Press was actually calling plays in the second halves of games, similar to what Andy Reid allowed Doug Peterson to do early on in his career. So now Press Taylor calling plays on the offense. I know a lot of people maybe were questionable on some of the things that were along the way, but play calling's an art. It's an art. There's an art to it. I don't think he did that bad. I don't think the offensive line did him any favors, though.
Of course. And yeah, I think some of the runs and you're on 4th and 1 and you do a pitch out play. I mean, I think there were some plays in hindsight that could have been called differently. But again, that's Press growing. I mean, this is his second year in the system. It's first time calling plays for the entire game. Doug Peterson said, hey, Press was calling the plays during some of our unbelievable comebacks in the second half last year. So Doug Peterson did that with Andy Reid. Doug's doing that with his star pupil, Press Taylor. Maybe the last season we see Press Taylor in Jacksonville if things go according to plan for Jacksonville. But I think Press, things to clean up. But again, you want to be that innovative guy and give guys their chances. Doug is doing that, and you're going to go and sink or swim with it.
Look, I think the biggest misstep for them was letting this news come out on game day the way it did, because that puts all eyes on the Jaguars offense, and it didn't kind of have to be that way. Keep in mind, it's like Justin just said, Press Taylor is a future NFL head coach, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. He's going to get a job. He's going to get one pretty soon.
Right.
But because of the way they did it, with that news coming out that like prior to the game, everybody's all eyes on the Jaguars offense and trying to see just how Press Taylor handles those duties. And because of that, some of those other plays were under the microscope. Keep in mind, like the pitch play. This isn't the first time we've seen them do that in short yards. They did that last year, and at times it worked, at times it didn't, and we were like, ditch the pitch, go straight up the middle. But this isn't new, some of the things. These are tendencies that are built into that offense, at least the way it's currently constructed. And keep in mind, like my thing, the Jaguars scored 31 points.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, they could have played better. What did you want, 40? Like, when's the last time legitimately we said, man, the Jaguars scored 31 points.
Yeah,
but that's not good enough. Like
2 years ago, this was the lowest scoring team in franchise history in 16 games. I mean, that was... You just don't do that. So, yeah, 31 points is very good start for the Jaguars, considering they did not play well for 4 quarters. They played well for probably 2.5 quarters of that game yesterday. So, again, a slow start, yes. And, for the Jamal Agnew plays, the pitch plays and stuff, we saw a lot of that in training camp. We saw a lot of pitches to Jamal Agnew trying to run a receiver reverse. In training camp, you're not allowed to report on those plays, but we saw a lot of those in training camp. So they've been trying to work on that. It did not work yesterday whatsoever. And again, I think some of the play calls on 4th and 1, to me, it's ridiculous that you still can't sneak on 4th and 1 or running back up the middle on 4th and 1 and get a first down. We thought Tank Bigsby, that would be the solving, with Travis Etienne last year, was not a good back at getting that 4th and short yardage situation. Tank Bigsby, they drafted him for that reason. So a little surprising to see they didn't go to Tank in that kind of situation, but he had a up and down day. But I'm just curious, and I think it probably boils down to the offensive line, why there were so many struggles on those short yardage situations.
I think part of it definitely is the offensive line situation. We saw a little bit of a change in some of the philosophies in those short yardage plays, especially after Brandon Sheriff got hurt, which is understandable because Brandon Sheriff is their best offensive lineman. If you're in a clutch moment, you're going behind Brandon Sheriff. Now, the one thing that was frustrating for me, you drafted a running back named Tank, and you're not using him. He wears number 4. That means use him on 4th down.
That is. You drafted him specifically for that reason. I mean, the thunder, the lightning element with Travis and Tank, that Travis is your speed back. Yeah, he can hit the hold, but when I think of Travis Etienne, I think of the Chargers game last year on 4th down. When he sweeps outside, runs that, turns the jets on. But Tank is Tank. For God's sake, he's not a guy who's sidestepping and turning on the edge. He's a guy that you drafted specifically to get you those yards in short yard situations. Reminds me of the Urban Meyer Bengals game when you have James Robinson on the bench and you're on in down territory inside the 2-yard line.
Carlos Hyde and
run your guy, run your man up the gut, and that's what they got Tank Bigsby for. He's a perfect complement. I don't agree with some of those play calls where you're in shotgun or you're taking and trying to do a pitch on 4th and 1 and you're already 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage when you make that play. So yeah, I do think there's some growth areas. The offensive line has got to get better, but I want to see a Tank Bigsby run on a 4th and 1 situation, not a Trevor Sneak. I want to see something like that happen, especially when these guys named Tank.
Well, hey, look, Travis had a fantastic run at the end of the game, but by far, to me, the best play he had all day was that Calvin Ridley catch on the outside. You just see Travis Etienne, boom, speed right by him to lay a block down. That's some real speed because Ridley was hauling downfield.
And that's probably an 8, 9, 10, 11 yard block from Travis Etienne. That play set up, and great play, and that set up a touchdown for the Jags. So again, Travis Etienne played well. The numbers, don't tell his whole story. Some big blocks on a punt return for Jamal Agnew. So the little things like that, I think we're good to see from Jacksonville, even when the offense is not playing at its sharpest.
Right. They definitely played a complete game. Now, one player that I don't think there's going to be any argument here on if they played sharp or not, Calvin Ridley. First introduction to him in a Jaguars jersey, and he scored the first touchdown of the year. He had the first over 100-yard receiving game of the year. Only Jaguars receiver to get to that number yesterday. Big day for number 0.
Absolutely, and that's what you expect. We saw flashes of that in the preseason. We've seen it at training camp. I don't know how many times we looked at each other and said, oh, my God, Calvin Ridley's going to be the guy. But to actually see him do that in an NFL game, against starters in an NFL game, is not just 5 drives in the NFL preseason. This is against the number 1 guys, knocking off that regular season game rust. 686 days since he last played in a regular season game. So great for Calvin Ridley. Kind of cut into some production of some other players, but I don't care. I love to see that alpha male receiver. We've been talking about alpha male receiver for the last 3 years, you and I, repetitively, and they finally have one.
They definitely do. And the dynamic is going to be one that takes some time to kind of grow for all of these guys. Last year, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk hit career high marks and had phenomenal seasons. Probably not going to get back to those numbers. Christian Kirk caught just 1 pass. Calvin Ridley is getting so much attention. But now they've got 3 receivers that can draw that attention away to different pieces, because on the pass where Zay Jones caught this great touchdown pass, the defense had 2 guys occupying Christian Kirk. It's that different attention getters that they have around the field. And having those sorts of weapons that the defense is like, well, we got to account for this guy. Yeah, we got to account for this guy, is going to open up other players.
Absolutely. And I think you saw that with Christian Kirk, first 1,000 yards receiving season last year. He was the guy for the Jaguars last season.
Right.
He's not going to be asked to be the guy week in, week out this year. And I think that suits Christian Kirk's game plan. I think that suits Christian Kirk to be that 1B receiver, and I think Calvin Ridley, I mean, you've got that 1A alpha receiver, and Zay Jones is that perfect number 3. But again, yesterday they didn't call Christian Kirk's number because Calvin Ridley had the hot hands. Zay Jones had his catches as well, the great touchdown catch of the year candidate in week 1. And Evan Ingram had 4 balls for about 55 yards. So yeah, there's one ball. It's got to go to a lot of different mouths.
Yeah,
a lot of different mouths.
All right. Let's go to the defense, because I think the defense won the Jaguars the game. They kept them in it. They made some big, crucial fourth down stops. We got to talk about the defense. We can start with the pass rush. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Essentially, it's boiled down to Justin took Josh Allen. I've taken Trayvon Walker. Early receipts, so Josh Allen's in the lead.
Yeah, that's good, though. It's, for Jacksonville to have a pass rush that's capable of anything, you're going to have production from Josh Allen, Caleb on Chason, Trayvon Walker, Roy Robertson Harris. You're going to have a lot of production from guys. There's no Aaron Donald on this team.
No.
There's no Nick or Joey Bosa. I mean, you've got to have production from everywhere. And you've got to have it from rookies, Cyr Abdullah. And it just so happens that yesterday Josh Allen had 3 sacks, statistically 3 sacks. I think it was more legitimate 1 sack and 2 kind of touch plays for back-to-back sacks.
Effort plays
weren't truly sacks. But on the stat sheet, 3 sacks for Josh Allen. Trayvon Walker had 1. Trayvon was disruptive. You like to see that. And defense, like you said, won them the game yesterday. I know there was the Travis Etienne touchdown run, Tank Bigsby run. Those were byproducts of good special teams and good defense.
Definitely were. Look, the pass rush has been kind of that worry point for us throughout this entire process. As we talk about that Jaguars defense, the worry point, like where can they improve? It's the pass rush. Well, Josh Allen showed up, Trayvon Walker showed up, and look, we can say it right now. If those 2 guys both get into double-digit sacks, I like the Jaguars' chances of making it to Vegas because they just have that sort of team, and that was the question mark. The secondary's good. The linebackers should play pretty well, but that pass rush, it was like, can they do what they need to do when they need to do it? And they did against the Colts offensive line that's a really good unit.
Pretty good team, yeah. And I think going into the season, we've had conversations at training camp, OTAs. Who's going to be? Are you going to go out and trade for a pass rusher? Are you going to sign some guy? I mean, you didn't address it in the draft like we thought they would. Yeah, Cyr Abdullah, early returns on him look good and limited amount of reps. I think Cyr is going to make his way, maybe next year be that missing piece who can kind of take that step forward. But you didn't do anything to address the immediate in terms of getting a guy in a trade and free agency in the draft. So you're hanging your hat on guys who were in the system already. And yeah, the early returns on Josh Allen through 4 years have been more hype than actual production.
Right.
Or a great rookie season, Pro Bowler as a rookie, but never been able to match that. So again, Jacksonville did not sign him to a big deal. He's on the 5th-year option. You saw a little bit of that possessive, that I've got to have a great season.
Yes.
I've got to perform. And if he keeps playing like that, this Jaguars defense is going to be all right. You know what Trayvon Walker's capable of. He's a disruptor. You saw that yesterday. He forced Anthony Richardson out of the pocket, stepped up. Trayvon had the sack. But I think Trayvon's best asset right now is just being that disruptor, that pocket collapser, and making that quarterback know, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here.
All right, let's turn the page because the Jaguars are 1-0, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about this later. But 1 win doesn't define your season. If that was the case, ultimately we'd hang our hat and say the Cowboys are Super Bowl champions, and we know that ain't gonna happen. So look, everybody was kind of let down, like, oh well, it was a bad win. They wouldn't have beat a lot of other teams like that. But ultimately, 1-0 is 1-0, and it's just the first week of the season. Like, think about this: the Jaguars beat the Colts in week 1 of 2020. They played out of their minds. Almost a perfect game. Gardner Minshew did not miss. People were saying he was the best quarterback in the state of Florida, and that was the only one they got that entire season.
Yeah,
1-15. That was it. So you peaked in week 1. You don't want to peak in week 1. This team has not peaked in week 1. This team went out there, played a little kind of game, but they won. And now you get to move on to week 2 where you're going to have to play a little bit of a cleaner game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, they're playing here. And had you told me the Jags are the one, how they did yesterday, I probably wouldn't have believed you. They tend to lose those types of games historically. But again, winning on the road, Indianapolis, a place you've not won at since 2017. You've won 5 games there all time entering this season. That's just pathetic. So it's a division win. Yes, style points. It was not pretty. but you knock the rust off. The Chiefs got beat by the Lions in week 1. So anything is possible.
Yes.
You knock the rust off this past week. You clean things up for the Chiefs. You hope, you can kind of seal the deal. Last year, the hang up to me last year, the takeaway from last year, Chiefs in Kansas City, divisional round, you can't get to Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Can't get to a gimpy Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Show that you can get to him now. Show that that gap has closed a little bit. It reminds me of that 2018 season where you lose to the Patriots in AFC Championship game. They come here, I believe, in week 4, and Jacksonville played out of its mind, said, hey, we're not that same team from last year where you're going to beat us and bulldoze us around. I'd like to see a statement like that for the Jaguars to get to Patrick Mahomes, to force him into some bad throws, and to show you're ready to take that next step. And I think, Jacksonville in 2018 did not make that next step. That was their highlight win of the season. It played out of their mind. But I think Jacksonville, this team is different than that one. Yeah. If they can take that step, beat the Chiefs like they did the Patriots in that 2018 season after the AFC Championship game, I think this team is positioned to do great things and not finish like that 2018 team. I think the mentality is there. I think the talent is there. And I think, the bank is going to be rocking on Sunday.
They got to stay healthy. This is a big game against the Kansas City Chiefs, weeks 2. Now, keep in mind, if we going into this and we said, one team goes into this game 0-1 and one team comes in 1-0, we might have maybe discussed the Chiefs as being the team with the loss, but more than likely would have been guessing that the Jaguars had lost that game. But it's not an ideal situation that the Chiefs are coming in 0-1. Look, you like to see a champion staggered, but not when you're the one that has to come right behind them. Like, keep in mind, last year, the Colts beat the Chiefs, and they turned around and they rattled off wins in a row. This is a team that does not lose consecutive games very often. Last time the Chiefs went 0-2, Doug Peterson was still their OC, and that was back in 2014.
That long time.
So it's been a long time. Having them lose that first game puts the Jaguars kind of on their heels to start with, because the Chiefs are going to come in swinging, and they're coming out swinging. Yep. Then the big question is, do Travis Kelce and Chris Jones get out on the field? Because if those two guys get on the field, they are 2 game changers.
Yeah, I don't think Chris Jones is back this week. I think he's not been at training camp. He's been holding out. I don't think if he's signed tomorrow, he's going to be back on the field. Like, he takes some time to get back in game shape and get his legs. Travis Kelce, on the other hand, Jaguars could not cover him last year.
No.
And you think he's going to be back on the field this week. He missed the opener due to injury. Reports are he's probably going to be ready for the Jaguars game. So, again, that's another invitation. How much have you improved? How much have you closed that gap? Because the Chiefs are the barometer, the measuring stick in the AFC. So you need to get out there, show that you can bang with them, just like the 2018 Jags came out and thumped the Patriots.
Right.
You've got to come out and prove you could bang with an elite AFC team. Patrick Mahomes is at his peak. Hurt last year in the playoffs. They still could not touch him. So I want to see Jacksonville come out and do it. I don't think Chris Jones will be there. I think Travis Kelce will be back.
All right, so this is a Victory Monday episode. So let's hand out a game ball. Who is your player of the game for the Jaguars before we look ahead a little bit?
I'm going to probably, if I'm going to give a game ball, and it's tough to give it because I no offensive guy. Calvin had a good game. But I'm going to say Josh Allen, game ball.
Okay.
And 3 sacks is good. You had 3 tackles for loss, 10 total tackles. And I think, just trying to find a defensive player for that game. I know the offense had 31 points, but man, that defense, whether it's Tyson Campbell with a pick, whether it's, the list goes on, Trayvon Walker, right. Rolando Blackson had a fumble. There have been so many guys. Foye Oluokun led the team in tackles, had a huge pass breakup in the end zone on 4th down. Yeah. There's been so many defensive guys that had games yesterday. Yeah. And really the defense only gave up 14 points, with that fumble return in there. So they played a great game. But I'm going to hang it on Josh Allen. 3 sacks, 10 tackles, and an effective rusher against the Colts.
It was definitely a good game for Josh Allen. I'll give him some points there. I didn't realize. So the 2 of his sacks were on back-to-back plays, and I remember looking at it when I was like, well, that was behind the line. That counts as a sack. And then I looked at the stat sheet and it was 3 sacks. I was like, where did you get that on? Oh, they were on back-to-back plays. I didn't even realize that, because that's 2 of them were kind of plays. But yeah, no, he definitely made an impactful play. Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker played phenomenal, getting pressure on Anthony Richardson. A little bit of a different kind of quarterback. Now against Pat Mahomes, they have to get pressure to a different point. For my player of the game, I'm going to go a little bit of different. If I could give it to the whole defense, I would, just because I think they played great. But I'm going to go Jamal Agnew. That return late in the game changed the dynamic for the Jaguars. I mean, that return is what I really feel like changed everything. If he doesn't return that, or if that return doesn't come together just perfectly, the Jaguars are starting inside the 5, which is less than ideal. In a crucial point, they were still losing at that time. That return was huge, and it was one of those plays where you're like, what is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? Oh, no, oh, no. And then all of a sudden you're like, run! It just is that kind of play. And that was like a moment where you say, all right, Jamal Agnew is one of the better returners in the league. You kind of just got to let him do his thing. And he did it, and it was a huge return in a huge moment for his team right when they needed it.
Absolutely. You fair catch that, or you let that bounce. I mean, let's say he fair catches that or lets that bounce. I mean, fair catches that you're at the 6. You got a 94-yard field, and an offense has been treading water all day. You let it go in the end zone, still got an 80-yard field, 75-yard field. I mean, you have a lot of work to do if Jamal Agnew does not field that punt and take it the way he did. There's some good blocks on that return as well. So very good special teams play by Jamal Agnew. You completely flip the field. I mean, you go from your 6 to the Colts 46 in one fell swoop. And for an offense that was struggling and really trying to find its way, 2 turnovers, that was a huge play. Huge play. So I agree with you on Jamal Agnew.
All right, so as we kind of wrap things up, one bit of news that I know I mentioned it earlier. Brandon Sheriff left the game. He returned to the game, left again. They're saying that he's day-to-day with a sprained ankle, so we'll keep an eye on him throughout the week to see if he's ready to go. All right, let's peek ahead a little bit to that Chiefs game. Let's talk, pick one player that you think is going to be key for the Jaguars to walk away with a win. Somebody on the roster. It can be anybody except for Trevor. Because that's just a gimme on every play, on every one of these questions. So any player on the Jags roster that you think will be key to them walking out 2-0 next Sunday in the bank, besides Trevor Lawrence?
I'm going to say it's got to be somebody on defense. I think it's got to be Trayvon Walker. I think it's got to be Josh Allen, Foye. It's got to be somebody who covers Patrick Mahomes, who swarms Travis Kelce. I think the offense is going to put up some points against the Chiefs, but I've got to see something out of the defense. You got picked apart in the AFC divisional game last year by Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. You couldn't even get to it. Give me Patrick Mahomes and bring him down. So it's got to be somebody off that defense, whether it's Trayvon Walker pressuring the quarterback, whether it's Josh Allen getting in there and making disruptive plays, whether it's Roy Robertson Harris. Somebody on that defense has got to do something. And they've got to shut Travis Kelce down, and they've got to rein in Patrick Mahomes. So I think the offense, I'm going to tilt completely the other side. Somebody on that defense. And I'll say Josh Allen again. I know I've been banging the Josh Allen drum, but he's a game changer. He gets in there and gets things done. So to me, disrupt Patrick Mahomes. It can come from anybody on that defensive line in the secondary, and you got to shut down Travis Kelce. So I'm going to say a linebacker is going to be on Travis Kelce a good portion of the day. So Devin Lloyd. I mean, somebody is. I find it hard to name one guy because, I mean, it's gonna be a team effort of stuff. So a Devin Lloyd, a Josh Allen, a Trayvon Walker. Those guys have got to make a difference against those 2 big Chiefs core players.
Well, Josh Allen did say that this is a personal kind of game for him. He said that he didn't play his best in the 2 Chiefs games last season, so this one was personal. So we'll see if Allen can have another big game. He's set the bar high for himself with 3 sacks, so maybe he can duplicate that on Patrick Mahomes this go around. All right, if I got to pick one guy, I'm going to go with Antonio Johnson. I don't know if he's going to play. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. But if Travis Kelce goes, you need somebody who can cover him. We saw last year the Jaguars didn't have an answer. I know it's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie who hasn't played an NFL game yet to go out there and cover the best tight end in the NFL. But I think he can do it. Look, the Jaguars need this guy to be a player. He has size, he has speed, he has strength, he will hit. And they've put him in positions during training camp to try and prepare him for what they need him to do on Sundays. They put him one-on-one with Evan Ingram day in and day out to try and prepare this guy, and they liked what they saw. They think that Antonio Johnson is a good player. He could have a role on the defense whenever he's healthy. It depends on how long the hamstring kind of takes. It would be ideal if he could be ready for this week, especially if Travis Kelce goes, because if not, I think we're sitting there grasping straws like, all right, what are you going to do for this guy? Because you need somebody who has size. You need somebody who has speed. And Travis Kelce will still push you around, so you need somebody who can kind of muscle you back. So a safety like Antonio Johnson will be perfect. I'm in the Antonio Johnson fan club at this point, but I think he's a guy.
Jamal was also in the Brian Branch fan club.
Was.
Last week, Brian Branch just happened to have a pick six off Patrick Mahomes in the Lions game. So maybe Jamal's forecasting a little bit. Jamal was on the Brian Branch hype train throughout draft season. He liked Antonio Johnson as well, so maybe a little foreshadowing.
Hey, foreshadowing. It's my guys. Look, they're on the guys list. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll talk more about the Chiefs game as we kind of inch closer to game day. Don't forget, you can always track down more Jaguars content over on newsforjax.com underneath that sports page. And always, you can check out our other stuff over on YouTube. And you can get this podcast anywhere that you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a comment. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.